Alright, let's do some racing in Gran Turismo Sport in Sardegna Track A in reverse for some reason. It's Daily Race C with Group 4 cars. I'm in the Ferrari because Tijni recommended it, no other reason. Right now I'm trying to climb up in the driver ratings and I'm in the lower B category, so C and D class drivers are involved as well. So you know things are gonna get a little bit nuts because of how they drive. You know what I mean, just watch, you'll see what I mean by that. So the first turn right here tends to get really crazy if you screw it up, because you're gonna go just into the barrier and you're just gonna have to rage quit. Thank God it's a rolling start, because otherwise the carnage is just gonna be unbelievably crazy, especially in the second corner. I brake just enough to make sure I don't send the red Ferrari flying into the barrier, and out of nowhere comes this McLaren, nudging me aside and just takes my position. And keep an eye out on this guy, because he pops in and out throughout the entire race. I don't know what happened to the Ferrari at the front, but he just ghosted out of nowhere and we moved up to 5th. At this point, I'm still not sure how fast or slow I should approach this corner. As you can see, the Mustang behind just slides right through, and I definitely make the mistake of turning into him when we were wheel to wheel. So yeah, there's that. We're gonna fast forward here as the Mustang and the McLaren are fighting for position at the front, and I'm just gonna tuck myself into their slipstream. Right here, almost wheel to wheel with the McLaren, I try to brake just in time to slide out of the way of these two guys, but J-Lo in his Mustang nudges his way back again. And just like that, out of nowhere, I get a penalty of 3 seconds. I don't know how that happens, but yeah, you just have to go with it sometimes. The penalty system in this game is just an enigma. I'm just gonna cry on the inside and go with it. One lap down and already a lot has happened. And just up ahead, James in the blue Viper probably greeted the barrier on the right as he's gonna get ghosted, but recovers just in time for the second turn. It's quite the cluster of cars and I nearly bump into the blue Viper, but make the turn as clean as it can be done. And again the Viper goes into the barrier as he probably forgot to brake there, and thankfully decided to fall back instead of turning right into me. I definitely misjudged the power of slipstream coming into this turn, as I brake as much as I can at this point, and the brakes are just dying of death, as Super GT would say, as I go all the way down to first gear to make that turn. And once again you notice the cars at the front can't seem to stay on the inside, with the Mustang sliding into the barrier, making way for me to move up to 4th. But that really doesn't matter, does it? As I come up to the penalty line and I have to slow it down for 3 really long seconds, going all the way down to 7th with American made cars, a Mustang, a Viper and a Corvette taking the lead ahead. And again, James in the blue Viper screws up the first turn by becoming one with the barrier and just slows down. Coming into this turn, I don't know what the Corvette was doing, as he just slides into the corner and I really had no choice but to ram right into him. The rest of the lap goes really smooth, but just at the end the Mustang decides the tarmac of the track isn't enough for him as he goes onto the gravel. And just as he's recovering, he decides he's gonna block my path, but thankfully I was able to get ahead just before he came back from being a ghost. 4th lap in, as you can see, I was able to recover from the lost positions, mostly because of the mistakes the other drivers made, so I was just happy to be 1 position above from where I started. 3 laps go by and looks like everybody has settled into their positions quite well, as I'm closing in on the 3rd and 2nd positions. And once again, we have one more driver being sacrificed to the barrier guards, as this time the McLaren forgot to do the one thing he has written on the back of his car, and that is to brake. Coming into the second turn, I was hoping the McLaren realized that using the brakes were important, but he was far enough to where he wasn't gonna cause any more trouble, or at least that was what I thought. Coming to this turn, here I really misjudged where I should have braked, and how once again the power of the slipstream can really screw things up for you if you don't brake early. And even the wiper definitely made an error there when it came to braking and goes right onto the grass, and I was able to accelerate faster and get the upper hand. So I really thought it was going to be smooth sailing from here, but out of nowhere comes the McLaren, faster than a cruise missile from Modern Warfare. And I was really surprised when the McLaren switched to the left and let me pass, as usually you're not gonna find drivers with any sense of sportsmanship in these categories. And if you do, please let me know, because we really need to thank those drivers. From here on, I was driving a bit defensively, making sure I kept an eye on the McLaren behind me, but also I was close enough to the wiper ahead to see if I could put some pressure and pass him as well. Coming into the 9th lap, I realized the leader had pitted to get new tires, which you really don't need to do in this race because the tire wear is not that strong, but I think because he had such a lead, he figured, why not? And obviously coming out of the pits, he's gonna have fresher tires, which makes him faster than the rest of us, which is just gonna guarantee him the win. I was getting a bit concerned with how close I was to the wiper, but also there really wasn't a window for overtaking, so I had to wait patiently for the next turn. This time I made sure I compensated for the slipstream and braked early, but I really shouldn't have stuck to the right side as I came out of the apex much wider than the wiper, so there was no way I was overtaking him there. The McLaren was still close enough where if I made a mistake, he would definitely be coming cruising in faster than Sonic, ready to take my place. Right here I was able to stay on the right side with the wiper going a bit wide. That made the gap between us even smaller, but it was still not enough to overtake him. On this turn the wiper definitely maintained the racing line and there was no room for me to make a move, so I had to wait. I still had one more lap to try and overtake the wiper, but for some reason he slowed down at the S-curves, probably to avoid going onto the gravel, which is understandable, and just like that, we were in second place. And into the final lap we go, with the wiper still managing to stay behind me at a distance that made it very difficult for me. Coming into the first turn, the wiper bumps into me, almost sacrificing me to the barrier guards, just like everybody else. And with the second turn, we come into it wheel to wheel. He does bump into me again slightly, but we both made a clean enough exit around the corner just to keep ourselves from bottling it. I slowed down just enough for the wiper to get ahead at the curve, but enough for me to get into the racing line, which definitely forced him to back off since the track is really narrow, and if you want to come out at the next turn alive, you're gonna have to be on the racing line. This was probably my cleanest attempt at the corner. I was able to get onto the throttle a lot quicker than the wiper as he fell back quite a bit. The rest of the race went really smoothly and I finished second, which I was really happy with given all the carnage that happened in that race. Yeah! And we are back with a slightly better time and a better position on the grid. I was still in the Ferrari, but throughout this race I realized this might not be the best choice, and might have to make a change. For some reason I noticed my connection was lagging with only one bar showing up, and that was not gonna help as other drivers won't be able to react to my inputs and can cause some mayhem down the line. At the front there was a Citroen GT and a McLaren 650S. Hopefully this McLaren won't be as reckless as the guy before, but let's see. And we go past the first turn fine, but already the wiper behind me goes past me, and with cold tires, we are gonna have to brake early and hope we don't bottle it. And we are able to make that turn, a lot cleaner than the wiper obviously, and take back third position. And just like the Mustang in the last race, we get sidelined by this time a Porsche, and he goes right onto the grass and screws it up, and we try to go past but get squeezed right in between the Porsche and the wiper, and right now we are in quite the pickle. I'm trying to both attack and defend at the same time, and the moment I slow down a bit to let the wiper have some breathing space, the Porsche decides, nah, he's just not gonna bother making some space and just rams me full on. I spin out. I'm not gonna lie, I was contemplating on rage quitting, but I decided let's just go with it, and since it's the first lap, let's see how many positions I can get back in the next 9 laps. At the first corner I thought I could get past him easily, but he positioned himself on the inside line, but I was able to edge him by just a hair and pass him. Coming into the second corner, there was a cluster of cars just right ahead, and by the look of it, they seemed to be fighting amongst themselves, which allowed me to gain on them quite fast. And right here, the Brazilian Silva in the red wiper went just a little bit too fast into the corner and onto the grass, which just opens up room for me to gain on him. Now it was time for me to catch up to the GTR just right up ahead, which would have been possible if I had any brain cells left and thought about braking early, because the slipstream can be quite the bitch. Coming into the third lap, trying to be a little bit defensive because the wiper is just right behind me, I go into the first corner without braking, and I probably make the one mistake that could have been avoided, and I get relegated back to 12th. At this point I'm thinking, is there even a point to this race anymore? But rage quitting is not gonna do us any favors now, is it? I catch up with the wiper again, and this time he's not gonna give up his position easily and goes on the defensive. I end up ramming him while we are both trying to keep ourselves on the inside, and that was completely my fault, and yet I don't get a penalty, which I'm gonna make an educated guess and say the wiper was not very happy about. Coming into the fourth lap, we come across the slowest Porsche probably in the entire game, and we end up bumping him, but thankfully he doesn't go spinning out. He definitely was pissed and he decided he's gonna try his best to cut me off from overtaking him. This time I do remember to brake at the first corner, which funnily enough the Porsche does not do and goes flying into the barrier, and I take back one more position. The rest of the lap went without any incidents, and now in the 5th lap we have climbed up 2 more positions and we are slowly catching up to a Subaru at the front with a 0.5 second penalty, probably for brushing against the wall. People seem to really misjudge where to brake in that first corner, myself included. I get off the throttle quite early so I don't go pummeling into the back of the Subaru, and we end up making a really clean turn around this corner, getting back on the throttle right at the apex, just enough to put some pressure on the Subaru. Now at this corner I probably made the mistake of not giving the Subaru enough space, and instead of braking the Subaru decided he's gonna crash into the wall and bump into me as he's coming out of the corner. But it really didn't matter as he had to serve his penalty of 0.5 seconds and he handed me his position anyways. The 6th lap in, I almost screw up the first corner by braking a little bit too late. Coming into the 2nd corner, the bright green Peugeot, instead of staying on the left, decides he's gonna turn into me and he loses a bit of momentum. So I'm just gonna act like as if I didn't know what happened there and just move on. We skip all the way to the final lap as I wasn't able to catch up to anyone, but as I'm coming into the final corner, I noticed the Peugeot at the front had a penalty of 1.5 seconds, and this was the same guy who had caused me to spin out all the way back on the first lap. I wanted to get as close as possible to him, so when he finished the race, the penalty would get added on, and just like that, I would finish 4th. And we are back for one more race, this time in the Dodge Viper. As per Mr. MCA's advice, I was able to get some practice and improve my lap time just enough to land me on pole position. The 2 drivers behind me had really close lap times to mine as well, so I was in for a race that was going to be a lot more competitive than the last 2. I noticed still the lobby was a mixed bag of B, C, D rated drivers, so who knows, maybe it could go really bad, it could go really well. Let's see. When you're starting out in pole position, it actually can be challenging as you don't have any slipstream to help you go any faster. But the ones behind you will definitely tuck in your slipstream to get an edge. This is exactly what happens as I'm braking to go around the 2nd corner. The driver behind me, Max Salty in the other Viper, almost sends me into the shadow realm, and yet I'm the one that ends up getting a penalty. I was able to maintain my lead until I hit the penalty line and McSalty just blasted off into the lead. But we were both in the same car, so as long as I didn't screw up around any of the corners and managed a faster lap time, it was inevitable that I could actually catch up. Second lap in, I almost screw up the first corner, and heading into the second corner, I once again forget how much of an impact slipstream has in this game, and should have braked slightly early. I probably wouldn't be able to overtake McSalty, but would be close enough to put some pressure into it. Coming to the end of the second lap, still trailing behind McSalty, I make the same mistake again by not slowing down enough to make sure that I compensate for the slipstream. And I almost end up spinning out and creating a bigger gap from the leader. Fortunately for me, he was making the same mistakes as well. Coming out of the final corner, he just went a little bit too wide onto the gravel. Third lap in, even with the mistakes I made, I was able to clock in the fastest lap time. So it was a matter of time that I caught up with McSalty. But nope, I end up crashing into the barrier. Fortunately for me, the rest of the lobby was a lot further behind, so nobody else was able to take my position. But McSalty at this point was just really far ahead of me. It took me 3 more laps to finally catch up to McSalty, and the rest of the pack was far behind us at this point. But I had to be very careful, as there wasn't enough laps to make up for any mistakes that I could make from this point forward. Still trailing behind at this turn, I was really taken aback by how much McSalty ended up braking. I ended up ramming him, but thankfully he recovered. The last thing I really want is a dirty win, to be honest. Going wheel to wheel down the hill, I don't know why that rhymed, but okay. McSalty was definitely on the better racing line, and when he came to the corner, however, I ended up having the inside line, so he had to finally back off. Coming to the final corner of the final lap, and with McSalty fallen off quite far behind, probably because he wasn't able to maintain control over his worn out tires, we closed the race with a win in Sardegna. Is it Sardegna or Sardegna? I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.